Live from the Smile Away Reformatory School, this is Derailed Trains of Thought.
Well, hello, Nick.
Hi.
The reformatory school is imposing some strange technical difficulties on us. So
We had to sneak off just to get this microphone out and the computer hooked up.
I know hopefully we won't end up in that box again.
No, not a box again.
Yeah, that's bad stuff. But
It is very smelly.
it's not my fault. So other than our location today, how are you doing, Nick?
Pretty good. The whole family's a little under the weather, but otherwise doing decent.
Yeah. Well, most of Indiana's been kind of
Under the weather.
so to speak.
Yes. No, it's been pretty good.
How'd your block tour go, by the way?
It went pretty well. I don't really know about like sales numbers or anything at this point yet. I get those sort of numbers once a month.
Okay.
But it was fun. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I got some comments. I know that at least one person said they were going to go buy a book.
Awesome.
A lot of people said, "Oh, this sounds interesting." So
Yeah.
it's better than nothing.
And from what I saw, it seemed like it was a very unique book in some of the sites you
It
visited.
did seem that way. Yes.
So hopefully it sparks a lot of interest.
Yeah.
that way.
Obed does not run around shirtless often enough for. Though he does at one point end up with his clothes off, but that's quite by accident.
So yeah, well, in that sense, it does stand apart from the crowd.
Yes.
Maybe not in the way that your publishers would like, but, I honestly I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but anywho, with that said, I think it's time to just move on to into stories. Blah, blah, blah. Let's move on to into story school. All right. Today's story school is I forget. This is your idea.
Oh, this is my okay. Well, I called it "Why We Don't Create," and the "don'ts" in parentheses, which you cannot see me making with my hands. And I guess the idea is sort of to examine. Most people, creative people, have a reason they want to, a reason they create, the reason they write or make movies or write music or whatever. And then they're also usually burdened by having a hard time sitting down and doing it.
Yes.
Um,
There seems to be a lot of pressures in society, or, well, at least in the place where we are today, there's a lot of pressures not to be creative. But most of the time, the pressure of not actually being creative like you want to be, there's all kinds of reasons.
Yeah,
for it.
there's a lot of internal reasons, external reasons. There's lots of, most people want to write a book or want to learn to play piano or something, and then not very many people actually do.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we'll just kind of discuss. Well, I almost thought we might start with, why do you, Tim, want to make movies or work in video?
So maybe start off with
Start with our pure motivations.
Start with the good about why we do it,
Yes.
and then what keeps us from actually doing it.
Yes.
Okay. Well, gosh, that's
Lay your heart on the line, Tim.
that is a very deep question, because for anyone who's ever gotten into a creative field, there's usually some very deep reason for what inspired you to do it in the first place. I think for me, a big part of it certainly was I'd always been interested in stories. I was interested in, actually, my first interest was going in career profession wise, I think was going into being a writer. And I think I wrote my first story when I was like 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of unusual for kids that age, at least that's what my parents made me think. And just after that, I just knew it was something that I was really interested in. And I kind of veered away from the writing aspect when I was in high school, just kind of realizing, that age where you're looking into careers and stuff and realizing, I don't know if I just want to sit and put words on a page all day. I don't know
Yes.
if I didn't know if I could really make a living doing that.
You can. No, I mean me. You can't. No, I don't actually mean that. But
You don't actually mean what?
you can make a living writing. It is very difficult.
Yes. Okay. Very true enough. But at the same time, I couldn't picture myself doing anything that wasn't creative, because I just felt like that was part of who I was, because I had already had all these ideas about, not all of them were firm necessarily, but I was inspired by Lewis. Was senior year of high school. I was just getting into Tolkien. I'm not gonna go into all that, but I was just getting into Tolkien senior year of high school, and I'm sure that was part of the process as I was trying to, wrestling with what am I going to do with my life, that phase, and into that, and even when going into undergrad, it became more and more of a, reading about Tolkien's own fairy tales, and certainly I know that was, getting to know you certainly added fuel to the fire.
Well, you can thank me or not, depending on how things turn.
But anywho, it felt like video and media was still something I wanted to do, and it was, it's a means of communicating truth to a world in a way that gets past people's barriers. Not that I wanted to go preach at people with stories, because I don't think Christian fiction or Christian films that preach too much are usually very effective, but there's a way that stories, and especially fantasy, kind of helps you open your eyes to a greater world than you can see just by your naked eye. Jesus taught in parables a lot of times. He understood the power of story. I realized that was, one of the ways that I really learned a lot, because I love Bible stories. I mean, the Bible is full of fascinating stories about men and women itself, and those were always my favorite way to learn about my faith. And I really felt like that was a way that God had called me to minister.
Good. Oh, now it's my turn, huh?
Yes, now it's your turn.
Well, if you were on the book tour, you've already heard this answer. But I tell this story a lot now. It's almost like it's been told so often. I'm like, it's a separate entity. But
it's a legend.
It's a legend in itself. No, but basically, I used to write and make up stories. I like had a half a book written back in high school with a friend, and I planned this role-playing game. But I always kind of assumed I was going to be a math teacher because I was much better at math than English. Well, I won't say much better, but that was my strong suit. It was the math and the physics and computer programming and stuff. And I always figured that was where I was going to go. And I guess my job still has to do with math and stuff now. But I remember it was, oddly enough, C.S. Lewis. Imagine that. Junior year of high school, we had this May term thing where 2 weeks you took electives. And I took one on C.S. Lewis, and my physics teacher taught it, who was awesome. And we read, among other things, Perelandra. No, well, we read Perelandra, but that's not the one. And then we also read The Great Divorce. And The Great Divorce, if you don't know the story, is basically people in hell come and take a day trip to heaven and decide they don't really like it that much and go back down to hell. Pretty fascinating stuff. But there's one painter for hell comes up, and a painter friend who's in heaven talks to him. They basically say, one tells the other, look, when people loved your paintings on earth, it wasn't just because, it was because you painted the light in such a way they saw a glimpse of heaven. They were probably impressionist painters to talk so much about light. But the idea was you can give a glimpse of heaven, of truth, of God through artistic means. And for some reason that just really resonated with me, and thought, well, I have a pretty unique voice. I could probably have a, I'm fascinated by the way of saying true things through art, through lies, through, made up worlds. And so I guess that's at the heart whenever I have my deep doubts about why am I writing. That's really the heart of it. That's the relatively short version.
Yeah, and these things, there's always multiple layers to it, because it's interesting. When you did your blog tour, I know in one of your things you mentioned The Great Divorce, and then some other one you didn't talk about it at all. Yeah. So I mean, there's never just one thing that leads you down this path.
That's like the, if I had to find an epiphany moment, that's what it is. But there's all kinds of reasons. I like, I grew up playing Final Fantasy and reading Wheel of Time, and I thought those were cool, and I wanted to do it too.
Yeah.
Or I like how words work. Yeah, because you love not just the truth, hopefully, but also all the trappings around it,
Yeah, all the things that come with it.
Which is why I tend to go towards more to writing than say video, because I like video, but the words themselves attach to me more directly, I guess. I've never been, as connected to video.
And speaking of the C.S. Lewis influence, I think there's always that part of us that, for those of us who derive influence from them, the whole Inklings perspective is like, if people aren't making the stories that we want to read or we want to watch or whatever, well then let's go make those stories.
Yeah, and as you get out in the world a bit, you're like, Christians need to change culture. You don't change culture by copying stuff. You do it by creating things.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of other aspects that come together like a Katamari Damacy sort of ball that rolls around.
Yeah. Have you played that before?
I have not actually played it. No.
I was just curious.
I thought it was a good illusion. So
It is.
So anyway, so that's those are our pure angelic reasons.
Our big reasons for life, which is appropriate since this is episode 42.
42. So writing's not quite the meaning of life, but hey, we'll swing it.
Creation.
And you could always go all theological, be like, we created the image of God in first 3 chapters. He was a creator, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
But then you come right down, then you wake up Monday morning and you have an assignment.
Or you realize, hey, I have to support myself somehow.
Yeah.
And even before you get into all that, just in the very basic high school level, there's just a simple procrastination problems.
Well, here's the thing. Many writers like to talk about writing. There's a whole different class than that actually get the writing done at a consistent rate.
Yes.
And there's all, and I guess the why we don't create, let me throw in a different angle real quick here. I read recently, my brother Zach had been talking about this book a while. It's called The War of Art, as opposed to Art of War, by Stephen Pressfield. And it's basically, this guy basically asks the question, why don't we ever get anything? We have these deep yearnings to create in us. Why don't we do them? He terms the reasons we don't called the resistance, that we have this resistance, and he says it has all kinds of different forms, and he kind of details them in little blog-like things, things like fear and, not so much as it's what resistance shows up as. Like, people will find ways to get around trying to do what they were meant to do.
And some of them are, I remember we talked about this. Some of them are legitimate things like, oh, I gotta go wash the dishes, or I gotta go take the dog out, I need groceries, et cetera, et cetera. Some of them are more excuses than anything.
Yeah. Well, and then even the legitimate things is sometimes priority. I mean, I've heard the stories of the writer, like, they'll clean the house. This one guy, who was it? In this book, I don't remember the author, the guy writing the foreword, said that one time he knew he had to write, he had a deadline, but he went into his closet, took everything out, separated it into seasons, and then tried everything on to say, this is summer long sleeve and summer short. I mean, he spent all day trying to find ways not to write. And then there really is something in it, I think, it's very hard. Thinking of an idea is relatively easy. Putting it on paper.
Yeah.
I've been wrestling myself lately, I finally am working a little bit on Stray and Fred. No, it's like the boy who cried wolf, the boy who cried Fred. Oh yeah, sure, you're working on it. And sometimes, I guess you use this example. Why don't I finish that thing? And I have all kinds of good excuses, but in the end, they're kind of just excuses. Oh, I have to do this project, or I have to do that project, or I'm busy right now, or I'm whatever. And they might be decent things, but they're still saying, look, obviously then making this Stray and Fred thing happen is not happening. So how do you, I don't know, personal things that tend to, because it's very easy to be like, oh.
How do you pinpoint it?
How do you pinpoint? Well, here's another thing that happened to me sometimes. I sat down to write Stray and Fred the other day. It was my second day in a row, which is a big deal. And it was a new chapter. And I just sat there, honestly, for like a half an hour staring at the paper. Because I had to get just the right. Once I get a chapter started, it works pretty well, but there's so many different points of view it could come from, or how much time do I jump? And, they always tell you, just start writing. And I've never been particularly good at that. Mm-hmm. Once I get the beginning in, I can. But then it's like a rock going downhill. But that first bit is hard. And some people, I think, overcome it by just writing. Mm-hmm. I tend to, if I'm going to stick with it, sometimes I'll just lay on the floor and play some music until my brain hits something. But
now, question: do you usually know, like, have a general idea of, like, when you sit down at a section? Do you generally know? Okay, I know what needs to happen, but how do I actually begin what needs to happen?
It really depends. I mean, obviously, if I meant to be, okay, let's take the clock tower. I had a good idea, and I could write at the beginning. Genius. I'm like, I like this character. I'm just going to build up this fancy clock that everyone's afraid of. And then once I got that idea out, then I'm like, and where's my story? So I sat in my notebook for like a year. Because then I'm like, I'm just going to do something else.
Right.
I tend to have kind of faster fam. Like, when I get a thread going, is fine, but then the thread only lasts in my head. It lasts about 1,000 words, and then I'm like, okay, now what? But I don't like to. My writing style, especially in Stern Fred, but in most of the stuff, I don't like to sit still very long in my writing. I want it to keep moving pretty rapidly. I don't like to just sit around and people talk, say, hi, how are you doing? So I'm always like, okay, well, what's the next interesting thing? I can't stand traveling. Like, I have to get from place to place. I can't stand that because I want to skip it, but you can't. If I can, I will.
Right.
But sometimes you can't. You're like, okay, how do I make this interesting? I don't want to just. I'm no good. Tolkien's great at traveling. I can't do. I don't because I've always been much stronger at character than setting or at descriptiveness.
I'm right there with you because, like, for a little while, I've been stuck on my book for Children of the Wells, New Wells Rising. Partly because I realized that the chapter needed to begin with showing them traveling in this wilderness area. So, like, how do I describe this? Because there's there's nothing out there. Basically, I started off saying, there's really nothing much out here. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But, there was really nothing much to describe, so I'm going to take you into the character's inner thoughts instead. It's a cop-out, but it worked.
Well, I've learned, actually, over the last couple of years to really I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do writing first after kids go to bed. Otherwise, it's not happening. Yeah. Or I'll say, at 10 o'clock when I, kind of settle into bed, I'll write in the bed for a while. And that rhythm really, I think, really helps. And whenever that rhythm falls apart for whatever, because it always does after a season, getting it back, because it really is kind of just pure willpower to actually get started.
Yeah.
Because anything, I'm like, I do need to wash the dishes, or I do need to take Lenny on a walk, or I do need to. And sometimes that stuff's good because, at least, for me, like if I've been staring at a computer screen doing accounting all day, I don't necessarily want to immediately go straight into.
Yeah, you need a break.
Now, it does, I will say, it's actually been helpful to have come home and play with kids for 2 hours. Because it kind of does completely reconfigure you in some ways.
That makes sense. When I read your on your blog tour, at some point you talked about your working space.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I don't understand how you do that. Because you talk about like writing in weird hours and in between like kids doing stuff and things like that. I'm just like, how does that work? I don't understand. I've known you for like 12 years and I still don't know how you manage to keep as disciplined. From my perspective, I think you're way more disciplined in your creative time than I am.
And I think some of it's just that I always feel I've always been a workaholic, which helps. So I always feel like if I sit still for too long, I always get a little antsy. That's some of it. I'm always like, why? Then, of course, the thing is that, so I find other ways to get around getting stuff done, which is like, Strand Fred needs done. Let's go write Snort. Or, or fill in any other book that's been written in the last 6 years by me.
Because when was Remnant of Dreams put out? 2007?
Something like that, yeah.
So it's been.
And I think another reason my excuses for don't write sometimes is just, especially for things like Strand Fred, like long things, like I've committed myself a lot more to short things because I like the idea of I got it done. And I think it is scary to say, I'm going to start on this project that I don't know when it's getting done. It's partly scary, and it's partly, when you have a very limited time for creativity, I think it's also seems like it might be stifling because you have all these ideas, but you have to focus all on just one, for a while.
Yeah.
But, again, maybe excuse, maybe not.
Well, to put myself in the hot seat for a little bit, Nick knows that, like I said, I've been having enormous issues with really just simple motivation in a lot of ways for working on this book. In part because, like, I am such a novice in writing in a sense. I haven't kept this up nearly as much as Nick has, obviously. I'd done writing for the Story Project and various other collaborative things that we've done.
Is that your first language?
Well, in a sense it was, but it's like piano for me. I took piano for 6 years or something, but I didn't necessarily have the most. I wasn't dedicated to it, and it's kind of dropped off. I never really picked up certain aspects of it, like chords. I've never been able to do chords really well. Anywho, so it kind of fallen by the wayside, and so I'm really rusty at it. But then the other thing is just, I think for me, and this goes beyond writing. This also goes to any type of creative work. I think the thing that has often kept me back the most is self-doubt, the fear aspect that you talked of before.
I think that's someone's trying Fred at this point. Like, I will never pull this off like it needs to be pulled off.
Well, and for me, like when it comes to like media stuff, when it comes to video, and I mean, I guess, again, all creative people deal with this, but there's 100 other people out there who want to do the sort of thing that you do, and most of them, unless you're like super talented, most of them will be better than you. And this became very clear to me. I think the first time it really became clear was when I spent a semester in Los Angeles, LA film studies program. And which was good in a sense because it kept you humble. You know, when like you're the only person in this rural community is that you feel like you've got this big vision sort of thing. Yeah. You're like, hey, I'm important. I'm gonna go off and do something. And then you go off to LA and you're like, oh, there's like 30 other people in this program that want to do the same things. And when it comes to like cinematics and all this kind of stuff, they're way better than I am. And so that was kind of a downer. And then same thing to a degree in film school, although I didn't feel it quite as much there. But, you know, you always know there's people who are going to be better at certain things than you. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I did wind up, and I know some people go through these sort of things and, you know, wind up not getting, you know, career. I mean, you do bookkeeping, which you enjoy because you work with your family. Yeah. But there are a lot of creative people who don't wind up working anything that's at all related to it. Yeah. And I'm doing video production. I mean, it's advertising, which I'm getting really sick of, to be honest. And that's a personal thing that I'm dealing with. But it creeps up, you know, it creeps up a lot, whether it's writing this book or whether it's, you know, trying to develop my own thing. And especially anytime that you're getting down to the nitty gritty of it, that's when the self-doubt really kicks in the most. You're like, I was really wrestling with this even just last night, honestly. Just thinking about, okay, you know what I've done so far, what value that you start questioning what value it actually even has.
Yeah, like, all the time.
Like when you look at, you know, you have a really small audience for, you know, your podcast or for your video or whatever you're doing. Like who is this really impacting? Why am I wasting my time doing this? All this kind of stuff. It just really pounds on you. And I was reminded of a column a blog you actually wrote recently where you talked about, you know, it doesn't matter. Yeah, go ahead into that. What you wrote in that
I'm trying to remember. I wrote it.
Because you were sort of a reaction to something that a minister had said about.
Oh yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes, okay. I'm like, I wrote it and I liked it at the time, and then I forgot. Okay, yeah, I listened to this podcast from the Gospel Coalition, which is a neat place. And these older pastors were saying, you know, what they'd wish they had known when they were younger, just out of seminary pastors. And they said that, you know, they were all eager to conquer the world and change the world for Christ and, you know, have big churches and publish books and podcasts. And then most of the time, God then put them in some random small country church where he taught them that they just need to love their congregation, love the people they'd been given. And obviously, and I said in this blog, pastors and writers not one-to-one, but simultaneously, most creative people have this desire to, like, my vision should go out into the world and make it a better place and change people and etc. But I think we first have to learn, and maybe always have to learn, first off to love what we're trying to say, what we're saying true. I mean, that's from a Christian point of view. Is it true and beautiful? And love what we've been given in that realm first, you know, because I remember I had an interview when I was back in freelance writing in college with this guy, and he talked about you're writing for an audience of one. That's the only guy that matters, is God. And I've always kind of thought this idea of a flower out in the desert. You know, it blooms and no one sees and then disappears. I mean, not that should be your goal necessarily, but I've always come to the conclusion, and I have to remind myself this constantly. If your writing isn't worth it when no one reads it, why would it be worth it just because people are reading it? That it has to have some intrinsic value, or you're depending on the fact that other people give it value.
The funny thing is, when I first read your blog, and I know you've said that sort of thing before, and it sometimes kind of drives me batty. And this time it kind of did, because like sometimes I feel like people, and even sometimes you, sometimes sell yourself short. Like, you know, you're a little too satisfied with a certain area.
Probably true, yeah.
Which, you know, is a good and a bad thing. I've been thinking about that, like, with my church stuff lately. Like, my church is kind of in a place that it's transitioning from a smaller church to a much bigger church. Mm-hmm. And coming from a small church background, I struggle with that a little bit because if God is doing something in it, you want it to grow the way it should.
Yeah.
You don't ever want to deny people, keep people out. You want people to be able to participate, even if that means getting bigger. But as our tech pastor has kind of been bringing it, showing us videos from like how bigger churches do things and stuff like that, and I start questioning, it's like, is all this really necessary? Like all this hoopla and technology and the expense and the time that's put into all this? I mean, it's just, technically it's really just for a certain community. What if you put all that resources into like the wider world and all this kind of stuff? And I don't think that's entirely, I mean, both things are important. It's a trick. I do think I've been wanting to reach a wider audience, and I think that's one reason why I've been talking a little bit more lately about, thinking a lot more lately about web series and some of these things, and wanting to reach people outside of just my local community, because there's a whole audience on the web that I don't feel like the church is really reaching very well. That's a side tangent, but the local people are just as important, and your small audience really is as important. And sometimes it's one of those truths that like I sometimes talk myself out of and then have to be talked back into. And weirdly enough, most recently, it was this goofy little anime that I've been watching called Tiger and Bunny. It's a superhero anime, actually.
Okay.
Like, it's an anime that has these characters are, basically your X-Men. They just have, this group of people who have developed powers. They call them Next. And they actually become heroes. They have sponsorships, and there's this whole reality TV thing. It's a fun show.
Interesting.
But anyway, the main character in the latter half of the season, he has a storyline where apparently it's very rare, but certain of these people, they slowly lose their powers.
Okay.
And he's slowly losing his, and which crushes him because being a hero is everything that he's wanted to be, even more than the other characters in the show. It means a lot to him. And so there's this episode where he has to go to his hometown because he works in a big city. He goes to his hometown to try to figure out what he's going to do with the rest of his life. And his family points him out to two things. One, he realizes if he loses his powers, it's not going to be the end of his life. And two, he has this daughter, this 10-year-old daughter that he hasn't been able to spend time with, that is really just as valuable as the city full of people that he tries to save. And it really hit home to me because, I like I said earlier, a lot of times the enemy, bad thoughts try to crowd out, diminish who you've helped and, the influence you've had. And it just reminded me, is like, don't let someone else take that away. Recently, Greg, our faithful listener, made an acknowledgement to us in his portfolio about how this podcast actually had been a great influence. And that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Because we want this podcast to help other storytellers when they're going through difficult times, through your own writer's block, just like what we're talking about. And I've gotten thank you letter from people from at church before too, saying, "Hey, this makes a difference."
Nice. That's good.
And I'm sure you've gotten stuff like that from people for your youth group.
Yeah, it's very true.
That's just one thing that for me it's kind of encouraged me when fear is the thing that's holding you back. Just think about that one person, your one audience, and obviously, I like what you said about being a blessing to God.
Yeah.
In what you do, because that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, and he may very well then move you to millions, but he places you where he places you for now. So that was good.
Yeah. So that may have gotten more theological than you were expecting, but
anyway, so those are things that I think probably all creative people go through, and as you can hear, we do it too. I mean, we pretend to know answers here on the podcast occasionally, but
no, we're struggling through.
We're just chipping away too.
Yep.
So
it's true. All right.
So you got a soundtrack today.
We do have a soundtrack.
All right.
Let's start that. Okay, I'm going to kind of break a soundtrack rule here.
Oh.
Usually
We have rules on this podcast?
well, sort of. The one is we usually tend to not play music that's not, like free license or OC remix and stuff like that. Or if we do play something that's copyright, we'll do an excerpt. Well, this one I really don't feel I can do an excerpt for, but I don't think that the copyright holders will mind much. Because this is sort of one of the Muppets' famous songs. It's not the most famous, but the name of the song is Just One Person. They did this a number of times. They did this at Jim Henson's funeral, or memorial service, I should say. They did this for their Muppets Remember Jim Henson special, and that's what this excerpt is from. And it's not really available commercially, so that's one reason why I don't think Disney will mind. Aside from the fact that this is just a podunk podcast. But again, it goes right back to what I was saying about, it doesn't matter if there's just one person that follows you and loves your stuff, because, that can be enough.
Yeah.
So here it is.
If just one person believes in you, deep enough and strong enough, believes in you, hard enough and long enough, before you knew it, someone else would think, if he can do it, I can do it. Making it two whole people who believe in you, deep enough and strong enough, believe in you, hard enough and long enough, there's bound to be some other person who believes in making it a threesome, making it three. People you can say, believe in me. And if three whole people, why not four? And if four whole people, why not more? And more, and more. And when all those people believe in you, deep enough and strong enough, believe in you, hard enough and long enough, it stands to reason you yourself would start to see what everybody sees in you. And maybe even you can believe in you.
Okay, we're back. It's been an interesting
Technical podcast.
it has, using this new Mixler app thing. All right, today we're going to try a new segment.
I know nothing about this.
We vaguely.
Well, I know the idea. But
The idea. And this new segment is, It's Came from the Interwebs.
basically, this is the idea is I don't know what he's bringing up exactly.
But we'll bring up some fun thing from the internet. Actually, maybe this is more of a crackpot's corner. It depends on how you look at it.
But we know that the internet has lots of crazy stuff that we can talk about. Sesame Street Fighter.
That's what this is.
That is awesome.
So
Okay.
So what this is just what it sounds like. Sesame Street Fighter.
Right. So I can be Cookie Monster, who looks a little bit like
They all look like Street Fighter
Street Fighter
characters,
guy.
basically. I don't know. I don't know
Honda. E-Honda.
Okay.
You look at the E-Honda. And then Grover is Vega. Whoa, not Vega, that's Dolly. Or the Indian guy.
Okay, yeah, he looks kind of Indian.
No, he's kind of bizarre. Man, that's frightening. That's like a homunculus version of Grover.
Well, it's weird because I think it's supposed to be like face paint, but like Cookie especially, he looks like he's got blood coming out of his eyeballs.
They're like homunculi.
Kind of.
Okay, Blanca as Oscar the Grouch is pretty much awesome.
He jumps out of his trash can.
Yeah.
Elmo
is as
M. Bison.
M. Bison. Man, we just need to have the bunny from Muppets on here doing something horrible. Bird is Ryu.
Ryu, okay.
Ryu, yeah. And then Ernie is Ken,
Yeah.
which would make sense. Yeah. All right, so.
Okay, now, so what this is this is a typing game.
Oh, I'm horrible at typing. So that's why he had me do this.
Okay, so the fun thing is the
And
different
I'm on pressure. I can't do it under pressure.
the different characters actually have. This is going to be sort of an audio let's play. So the different characters actually have different levels of words that you have. You picked Grover, and Grover's words are all weather related.
Oh,
So what he does is, as Nick types each letter,
badly.
when Nick types the correct letter, then Grover lands out a hit. You're fighting Cookie Monster right now. Cookie's the first.
I apparently cannot type frostbite.
Well, part of the thing is when you have to like type it as fast as you can because that like chains it. If Cookie gets a hit in on you, then you have, or if you get it wrong, then you have to start over. But if Cookie gets a hit on you, then that keeps you from typing.
So
it.
if Telly was on here, would he only write about triangles?
Possibly.
I've noticed that he really enjoys his triangles.
But yeah, so like
This is kind of awesome.
you're actually doing pretty good here. You're getting the letters out pretty fast. And so what Grover does is here he does like for each letter he does a punch or something. Then when you complete a word, then he does this little like a combo finisher thing.
Yeah, like the fire he breathes out of his weird face painted mouth.
It is weird seeing a Grover like this tall. But okay, so smog. Okay,
Blizzard. So smog is weather now, huh?
I guess.
This is unfortunate.
Snow. Oh,
KO! I just knocked out Cookie Monster.
All right.
We'll have to praise Cookies now. He has no teeth. He didn't have teeth to begin with, but
So now you're fighting against yourself.
I would fight yourself.
Yeah, Grover.
Oh man, that's a little
There's a
frightening.
certain order to it. I'm not sure why now this Grover has grass is one of his words.
Because apparently grass is now weather.
Is it weather? That doesn't make any sense. Well, now you've got ground, so that doesn't make any sense at all.
Maybe they're oh man.
Barometer.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Muckluck. Okay, this is kind of
Yeah, the characters definitely get more difficult as you go. Man, Grover's got quite a. See, you're typing so fast, he just kind of looks like he's convulsing or doing some weird dance move. Like when they go slower, you can actually get a sense of. He's got this like long arm punch thing.
Yeah, I can't remember what his name is. Apparently have not played Street Fighter 2 for.
Yeah, I really. M. Bison is about.
So who made this? Is this like a Sesame did
No,
BTS
this
make-
is not official Sesame Street.
I think
at
it
all.
should be though.
But they wouldn't do a fighting game. At least not Sesame Street wouldn't. I don't think.
Well, probably
I mean, it is cool that whoever made this thing still kept it educational.
not. Yeah, that is very unique.
It's still it's a typing speed sort of thing.
I think whenever you get a word with the letter of the day, that you should like
Get a bonus.
get a bonus. Yeah, I think it'd be awesome.
It does get really tricky when your opponent starts really chaining combos because then you like have to like keep pounding the same letter.
But if you type it too many times, yeah.
Yeah, but then you want to go on to the next one and then it really like messes you up.
Yeah, this is difficult. One more summertime, then I'm gonna beat this Grover down. My evil, Bizarro Grover. KO. Finish it. Oh, wrong thing.
And there's it's a very slow animation of him like falling.
Okay, I think
backwards.
Oscar might be my favorite though.
Oscar looks pretty great.
Oscar is awesome.
He's like hunched over and he's got this huge.
It's the Blanca.
Orange mohawk thing.
Man, now I wish I had picked a Street Fighter soundtrack for my thing.
Okay, now you get into opponents with the more difficult. Oscar, Ernie, and Bert's their word set are all Russian towns.
Really?
Yeah. So
That's horrible.
So like Oscar's trying to spell Vladivostok or something like that.
Whoa.
Which definitely ups the challenge. But the nice thing is, especially, and even you're finding, I'm seeing as you go on, you get longer words.
Yeah.
And the advantage of having the longer words is it's like a longer combo. Like if you can pull it off, then you can basically hurt your opponent for longer before they can hurt you. Like you're having trouble now because Oscar is hitting you more repeatedly. That making it harder for you to get a hit in.
This okay. The internet is full of odd and wonderful things.
Yeah, this is one of the coolest Muppet-related
So how do
things
you-
I've come across recently.
Well, how do you just discover this thing, or?
Earlier this week sometime. It's been one of the distractions keeping me from writing.
I mean, think about this. Someone had to make these graphics and program the game. I mean, that takes some... I mean, it really is amazing. We're talking about, what makes you want to create. There's enough people on the internet that will follow through ridiculous effort to make,
Stuff for free.
And things that, are very... oh, no, I think Blanca's going to get me.
Yeah. Oscar's... He's got you about a little less than half health here, so you better...
Yeah, I'm not very good.
You gotta just keep spamming the first letter.
But if you do it too often, then you go too far.
Yeah.
See, I don't stop fast enough.
Yeah. The other funny thing is, like, as you play play this, certain was not so much if you're playing with the Russian set, but like you, some of the words you start like using them as you're trying to fight the guy, like pressure,
night, clouds.
Yeah.
I think it would be awesome. Now, ozone.
This is my ozone attack. You can get the letters off.
No.
OZONE. There you go. Thunder.
So why is the count not here? I think the count needs there like lightning when he.
That's a good question, actually. Maybe he must have just gone with ones that he felt would fit with.
Come on,
characters.
Big Bird is Chun-Li with his like kicking thing. That'd be awesome.
Maybe that's for the sequel. Yeah, there's only 6 characters that I know of.
All right, KO.
Ooh,
I don't know if they want to listen to me do the next 2.
Yeah,
but
it'd be more the same. But anyway, that's
kind of awesome.
So yeah.
So we'll be in the show notes, right?
Yes. Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
But Grover is kind of frightening, honestly.
Yeah, and honestly, if you're having them, I'll go ahead and play for you a little bit. If you're having that much trouble with some of the by the time you get to Ernie and Bert, especially Bert is hard.
Well, he doesn't take no nonsense.
No, he doesn't. And if you get to M. Bison, he's really difficult.
Elmo? Why is Elmo M. Bison?
I think just because of the red.
Yeah, that's kind of awesome. He's all in black.
What?
He's all in black on the screen, wasn't he earlier?
Well, he's just grayed out.
Oh, I see.
Because you can't start the game as him.
Oh.
I'm not sure. I thought maybe like when I first started, I thought maybe you had to like just beat it to open him up. But I beat this now as Cookie and as Ernie, and I haven't unlocked him. So maybe you have to like beat it as all the characters.
Wow.
The weird thing is Cookie is actually more difficult in some ways because even though he has a lot of like 3 and 4 letter words, it becomes that much harder to like string a bunch of letters together. Yeah. So
he should just have like cookie flavors as his words. Macadamia. I said working.
Right, well, I'm not gonna be able to.
Man,
beat
Ernie
Ernie
is kicking your.
kicking
your trash.
All right, well that's good enough. But you kind of get the idea.
Nice. That is a wonderful aspect of the internet I've not known about.
It is. It's quite fun.
Things people make.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so with that, let's do a quick our take
on Tails. So this is where you must insert a song that goes, "Everything is awesome."
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when we live in our dreams.
So you want to talk about the Lego movie?
I want to talk about the Lego movie.
Okay,
Yes.
Lego movie was a lot of fun.
Lego movie was I saw the preview. I'm like, it might just be whatever. It might be enjoyable, but I didn't have high expectations. My parents would go see it. Dad came like, you have to go see this movie. He's like, it's epic. So I'm like, okay, I'll go see the movie then. And I guess what I like most about it is that it just is a ridiculous amount of fun. Yes. It's been a long time since I've seen a movie that it doesn't care,
Yeah. It's true.
It kind of is just being a 9-year-old boy playing with Legos. I mean, and it's just goofy, and the humor's a little odd, but in a way that I enjoy.
Yeah.
But nothing's like innuendo or everything's just played straight funny.
Yes. And very visually cool. Like the first few minutes you get in, you're like, oh wow, this is not something I've seen on a big screen before, and that's always exciting too when you realize
I was telling Zach after it got done. I went with Zach to go see it.
Uh-huh.
In some ways, it's like when I went to go see Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Afterwards, like that movie was meant for that movie. I mean, like everything was set up just for that particular narrow niche of a style.
Yeah.
And the Lego movie is kind of the same deal.
Well, and we've said before, it's always nice when you see a movie that's obviously made to be a movie. Like,
Yeah.
it's using all the tricks of the trade.
And this is obviously made to be a movie for people who love building Legos imaginatively. I mean, it's not trying to play at 3 levels or, I mean,
Right.
it's not going to win any awards for like deep plots or anything, but it's not trying to. It does what it wants to do really, really well.
Really well. And I think the funny thing is, in some ways, I think it's more targeted for like people our age,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
20 somethings. And I mean, obviously, kids will enjoy it.
But it had
But-
enough of those jokes that you're just like, okay, like, what was his name? Benny, the space guy?
Okay, yeah.
Like, I have those Legos. I just like recently dug out my monorail with the little blue guy.
Oh yeah, that's part of the fun of just looking
Yeah.
in the corners and seeing, hey, I have that piece, or I've seen that piece, or whatever.
And they play, you know, all the Star Wars Legos and the Batman. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things where there's Deus Ex Machina, and it doesn't matter. Like, what do you think? Just a spaceship's going to come out of the boom, and there it is. You know, because it doesn't matter for this movie. You know,
Yeah.
that's kind of the style
You can almost imagine, you know, some of these things happening like
in the
as-
mind of a kid. Yeah,
in the mind of a kid. Like I remember playing as Legos. I'd come up with the most ridiculous scenarios. Like I had this villain who would like blot out the sun, and then I would go destroy the sun, and then I'll go live on another planet if you don't pay me my money.
A friend of ours has a blog about toys, and she went to see the movie and loves it. It's like the most perfect Lego 2-hour Lego commercial. And the thing is, it is, but it doesn't feel like a Lego commercial.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
I love that they have the numbers on all the parts.
Yeah,
and-
all the
and-
part numbers. Yeah, that's great. As someone said, or as some people have said, in some ways, this movie didn't have the right to be this good.
Yeah.
Like no one expected. Like, because I had the same reaction as you. I saw the trailers, like, okay, it's kind of.
I mean, it's Legos. I'll go see it. It's Legos, and
Yeah, but and I guess the writers for it worked on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Okay.
They're those writers. So I mean, they've got talent, and you can tell they love Legos.
yeah, and you can tell, yeah, and just I don't think it's that easy as a writer to come across with that kind of just uninhibited joy for
Yes.
an hour and a half.
Right.
But it's not like farce. It's not like you do care,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not like I know it just runs this perfect line of just fun childishness, not like childishness.
Right, right. And I mean, and it could have easily gone the wrong way
Yeah.
on a lot of things. I
Yeah.
mean, you could say there are certain things that, okay, aren't exactly original. You have a chosen one thing, which they skewed it, but
Well, and the thing is,
you have a wise wizard, but
they
then they
t-
had fun with that.
But that's the thing. They take all the cliches and somehow play them as cliches and not simultaneously.
It's brilliant.
I mean, even the whole like believe in yourself thing, which everyone says is cliche.
and we've made fun of that ourselves.
But they use it and they joke about it and they use it really. I mean, it's like simultaneously being made fun of and not being made fun of.
yeah.
I mean, it's a very honest movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not trying to be. It's not writers trying to pretend that they like Legos or trying to pretend that they're trying to make a blockbuster.
Yeah.
I think they were just trying to make a fun movie.
I think the thing is the lessons, if you will, that are in there, they feel very organic to the main story.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you can always shoehorn in a believe in yourself thing and people roll their eyes. But if you're able to actually, do it in a really creative way, and it feels organic to the story, then go for
And
it.
there's such a lack of irony being, a lot of movies
Yeah.
now are ironic somehow, and it has none of that.
Right.
I mean, in many ways, it's very innocent in its presentation.
And it's, again, a remarkable sleight of hand in that sense, too, because it doesn't ever feel, it does feel innocent, but at the same time, it doesn't feel, like, corny innocent.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, because you have, like, the Unikitty thing, who's, like, trying to hold in any negative feeling until it finally all goes out. That's very postmodern
Yeah.
in a sense.
Yeah.
That's kind of making fun of the light, bubbly girl characters. And, Cloud Cuckoo Land, for all its insanity, is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
Cuckoo Land.
so, like you said, they're poking fun at stuff while celebrating it.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to do
Yeah,
that kind of humor.
Yeah, that is the best sort of humor. It doesn't feel like they're making fun of it and they don't really like it, but they're kind of like it because they have to because it's the movie or yeah.
So,
Well, entertaining.
very excellent movie. I hope to see more great stuff from
I
it.
know it's like a cat poster, but it's true. Which is so wonderful. Because it is like a cat poster.
The funny thing is, I didn't realize that was an actual cat poster, the one that's in it, because I keep seeing it in that Geico commercial.
Oh, yeah. I forgot it's in that Geico commercial. That's hilarious.
Anywho, so
anyway,
that's
our
a
take on. Yeah, do you have another quick take on Tails? That was my main one I had.
I didn't have anything picked out.
I haven't watched any Olympics.
I thought you were actually going to talk more about
Art of War.
Yeah, art.
Or the War of Art.
War of Art.
I'll do these 2 cents. I think it's an interesting book talking about resistance and kind of the ways it comes up. He says things like, the things that you're most, the more resistance you have trying to get something done, he believes the more important it is for you to do for your own self. I would add a caution salt. I was turned off somewhat by, he's very kind of new agey spiritual. Like he had, like at the end, in the third section, the first section kind of like defining resistance, like things that stop you from doing what you were meant to do. Part 2 is like, how do you overcome resistance? Part 3 is sort of like this beseeching the muses, and he actually like does this little prayer to the muses of Zeus, and he's a little timey wine, not timey wine, but just he's created like this. It's kind of vague. It's like this vague spirituality about the creative potential of our inner selves, and so there are truths, but like even his way of talking about resistance is all strictly, he personifies the stuff that keeps us, and sometimes like some of it's just sin or fallen man, or so he comes from a very different worldview, but simultaneously I think there are a lot of neat things you can get out of it.
Sure.
Depending where you are, but that's part of me is like, really. So
Yeah.
but like Zach loved it. Natasha read it. She thought, especially the first 2 sections made you think about why I do or don't do things. The third section then with the whole like praying to the muses and stuff, she's like, this is crazy. But
I guess I'll throw out here, since we're talking about creativity today, a great book that I read last year that I shouldn't have mentioned when we did our year look back thing, that talks about creativity from a Christian perspective, was Scribbling in the Sand, or Scribbling on the Sand or something. It's written by Michael Card, who's a Christian songwriter.
Oh, okay,
so
yeah, I'm like, I know that name.
So for him, it talks a lot about art as a big concept, and he comes from a songwriting perspective, so it's a certain viewpoint. But he has some very interesting insights into what creativity means and what it means to be a Christian artist. And that can be able to pull off anything real big off the top of my head. But it was a really good read, and so that'd be another one I'd encourage if you need a little encouragement in that area.
It is okay. I find it, we have to read and like write blogs occasionally. It's like, I've been thinking this. Let's try to put it down on paper so I remember it later.
And honestly, a lot of times, these podcasts, we talked about how we hope it helps other people. Sometimes I go back and listen to it, and it kind of helps me. It's like a snapshot of a moment of time.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, these things are important.
Oh, we knew something. I always wrote the podcast, like I'll listen to them and like, wow, I actually know what I'm talking about. Or sound like I do. Or like I'll read something I wrote, and I'm like, okay, that's never happening again. That actually sounds really good. So.
Yeah. Been there, experienced that. Not to toot our own horn, but it does help sometimes.
It does help.
All right, Nick, why don't you give us, lay on us some contact info.
Contact info. All right, you can get a hold of us at derailedtrains@gmail.com. You can check out our website or our blogspot at derailedtrainsofthought.blogspot.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Make us awesome.
And if you're not listening to us live on Mixlr, don't forget that. Actually, I don't think, is anyone listening to us on Mixlr right now?
I don't think so. But it's Mixlr.com/Derailed Trains of Thought.
Yep.
So
don't miss out. Don't miss an episode. We're here for you.
And if you have missed an episode, go back and find it. There's only 42 to listen to now.
That's right. And you've got several months before we reach number 50. So.
Yes. It should be a big shindig.
Yes, it should be.
We'll have to figure out what that will be, but all right.
In the meantime, you have a song for us?
I do. So I didn't really have like any deep inspiration, but so I'm like on Overclock just searching random words, and I found that just recently they came out with a song called Mega Blocked, which I thought was good if you're having trouble writing. So it's from Final Fantasy. Normally it's from Mega Man 9.
Normally we do Final Fantasy.
Yes.
This is Mega Man 9.
Mega Man 9, just as well known, or the series. Remixed by Daemons and Trainbeat. It's from Concrete Man stage, I believe. Okay. And it's just kind of electronic-y and fun, and Hope you enjoyed.
Okay. Nick, the warden is coming our way.
Oh man,
We better.
yeah, put down the laptop. We need to hide.
Okay. All right.
All right.
All right. Until then, next time, folks. This is Tim,
This is Nick.
and see you later. Bye.
Adios. Bye.